question has come before the people for the first time, hence the necessity and usefulness of such long discussions. As far as the first question is concerned, I think I have made it clear that I did not turn atheist because of vanity. Only my readers, not I, can decide whether my arguments carry weight. If I were a believer, I know in the present circumstances my life would have been easier, the burden lighter. My disbelief in God has turned all the circumstances too harsh, and this situation can deteriorate further. Being a little mystical can give the circumstances a poetic turn. But I need no opiate to meet my end. I am a realistic man. I want to overpower this tendency in me with the help of reason. I am not always successful in such attempts, but it is man's duty to try and make efforts. Success depends on chance and circumstances. Now we come to the second question. If it is not vanity, there ought to be some sound reason for rejection of age-old belief in God. Yes, I come to this question. I think that any man who has some reasoning power always tries to understand the life and people around him with the help of this faculty. Where concrete proofs are lacking, philosophy creeps in. As I have indicated, one of my revolutionary friends used to say that philosophy is the outcome of human weakness. Our ancestors had the leisure to solve the mysteries of the world, its past, its present and its future, its whys and its wherefores, but having been terribly short of direct proofs, every one of them tried to solve the problem in his own way. Hence we find wide differences in the fundamentals of various religious creeds. Sometimes they take very antagonistic and conflicting forms. We find differences in Oriental and Occidental philosophies. There are differences even amongst various schools of thought in each hemisphere. In Asian religions, the Muslim religion is completely incompatible with the Hindu faith. In India itself, Buddhism and Jainism are sometimes quite separate from Brahmanism. Then in Brahmanism itself, we find two conflicting sects, Arya Samaj and Snape and Haram. Charwak is yet another independent thinker of the past ages. He challenged the authority of God. All these faiths differ on many fundamental questions, but each of them claims to be the only true religion. This is the root of the evil. Instead of developing the ideas and experiments of ancient thinkers, thus providing ourselves with the ideological weapon for the future struggle, lethargic, idle, fanatical as we are, we cling to orthodox religion, and in this way reduce human awakening to a stagnant pool. It is necessary for every person who stands for progress to criticize every tenet of old beliefs. Item by item, he has to challenge the efficacy of old faith. He has to analyze and understand all the details. If after rigorous reasoning, one is led to believe in any theory of philosophy, his faith is appreciated. His reasoning may be mistaken and even fallacious. But there is chance that he will be corrected because reason is the guiding principle of his life. But belief, I should say blind belief, is disastrous. It deprives a man of his understanding power and makes him reactionary. Any person who claims to be a realist has to challenge the truth of old beliefs. If faith cannot withstand the onslaught of reason, it collapses. After that, his task should be to do the groundwork for new philosophy. This is the negative side. Afterward comes in the positive work, in which some material of the olden times can be used to construct the pillars of new philosophy. As far as I am concerned, I admit that I lack sufficient study in this field. I had a great desire to study the Oriental philosophy, but I could get ample opportunity or sufficient time to do so. But so far as I reject the old-time beliefs, it is not a matter of countering belief with belief. Rather, I can challenge the efficacy of old beliefs with sound arguments. We believe in nature, and that human progress depends on the domination of man over nature. There is no conscious power behind it. This is our philosophy. Being atheist, I ask a few questions from theists. 1. If, as you believe, there is an almighty, omnipresent, omniscient God who created the earth or universe, please let me know, first of all, as to why he created this world. This world which is full of woe and grief, and countless miseries, where not even one person lives in a peace. 2. Pray, don't say it is his law. If he is bound by any law, he is not omnipotent. Don't say it is his pleasure. Nero burnt one Rome. He killed a very limited number of people. He caused only a few tragedies, all for his morbid enjoyment. But what is his place in history? By what names do we remember him? All the disparaging epithets are hurled at him. Pages are blackened with invective diatribes condemning Nero, the tyrant, the heartless, the wicked. One Genghis Khan killed a few thousand people to seek pleasure in it, and we hate the very name. Now, how will you justify your all-powerful, eternal Nero, who every day, every moment continues his pastime of killing people? How can you support his doings which surpass those of Genghis Khan in cruelty and in misery inflicted upon people? I ask why the Almighty created this world which is nothing but a living hell, a place of constant and bitter unrest. Why did he create man when he had the power not to do so? Have you any answer to these questions? You will say that it is to reward the sufferer and punish the evildoer in the hereafter. Well, how far will you justify a man who first of all inflicts injuries on your body and then applies soft and soothing ointment on them? How far the supporters and organizers of gladiator bouts were justified in throwing men before half-starved lions, later to be cared for and looked after well if they escaped this horrible death? That is why I ask, was the creation of man intended to derive this kind of pleasure? Open your eyes and see millions of people dying of hunger in slums and huts dirtier than the grim dungeons of prisons. Just see the laborers patiently or say apathetically while the rich vampires suck their blood. Bring to mind the wastage of human energy that will make a man with a little common sense shiver in horror. Just observe rich nations throwing their surplus produce into the sea instead of distributing it among the needy and deprived. There are palaces of kings built upon the foundations laid with human bones. Let them see all this and say all is well in God's kingdom. Why so? This is my question. You are silent. All right. I proceed to my next point. You, the Hindus, would say, whosoever undergoes sufferings in this life must have been a sinner in his previous birth. It is tantamount to saying that those who are oppressed now were godly people then, in their previous births. For this reason alone they hold power in their hands. Let me say it plainly that your ancestors were shrewd people. They were always in search of petty hoaxes to play upon people and snatch from them the power of reason. Let us analyze how much this argument carries weight. Those who are well versed in the philosophy of jurisprudence relate 3 or 4 justifications for the punishment that is to be inflicted upon a wrongdoer. These are revenge, reform, and deterrence. The retribution theory is now condemned by all the thinkers. Deterrent theory is on the anvil for its flaws. Reformative theory is now widely accepted and considered to be necessary for human progress. It aims at reforming the culprit and converting him into a peace-loving citizen. But what in essence is God's punishment, even if it is inflicted on a person who has really done some harm? For the sake of argument, we agree for a moment that a person committed some crime in his previous birth, and God punished him by changing his shape into a cow, cat, tree, or any other animal. You may enumerate the number of these variations in godly punishment to be at least 84 lakh. Tell me, has this tomfoolery, perpetrated in the name of punishment, any reformative effect on human man? How many of them have you met who were donkeys in their previous births for having committed any sin? Absolutely no one of this sort. The so-called theory of Puranas is nothing but a fairy tale. I do not have any intention to bring this unutterable trash under discussion. Do you really know the most cursed sin in this world is to be poor? Yes, poverty is a sin. It is a punishment. Cursed be the theoretician, jurist or legislator who proposes such measures as push man into the quagmire of more heinous sins. Did it not occur to your all-knowing God, or he could learn the truth only after millions had undergone untold sufferings and hardships? What, according to your theory, is the fate of a person who, by no sin of his own, has been born into a family of low-caste people? He is poor, so he cannot go to a school. It is his fate to be shunned and hated by those who are born into a high caste. His ignorance, his poverty, and the contempt he receives from others will harden his heart towards society. Supposing that he commits a sin, who shall bear the consequences? God, or he, or the learned people of that society? What is your view about those punishments inflicted on the people who were deliberately kept ignorant by selfish and proud Brahmins? If by chance these poor creatures heard a few words of your sacred books, Vedas, these Brahmins poured melted lead into their ears. If they committed any sin, who was to be held responsible? Who was to bear the brunt? My dear friends, these theories have been coined by the privileged classes. They try to justify the power they have usurped and the riches they have robbed with the help of such theories. Perhaps it was the writer Upton Sinclair who wrote somewhere, "Only make a man a firm believer in the immortality of soul, then rob him of all that he possesses. He will willingly help you in the process." The dirty alliance between religious preachers and possessors of power brought the boon of prisons, gallows, nuts, and above all such theories for the mankind. I ask why your omnipotent God does not hold a man back when he is about to commit a sin or offense. It is child's play for God. Why did he not kill warlords? Why did he not obliterate the fury of war from their minds? In this way he could have saved humanity of many a great calamity and horror. Why does he not infuse humanistic sentiments into the minds of the Britishers so that they may willingly leave India? I ask why he does not fill the hearts of all the capitalist classes with altruistic humanism that prompts them to give up personal possession of the means of production in this wool-free whole, laboring humanity from the shackles of money. You want to argue the practicability of socialist theory. I leave it to your almighty God to enforce it. Common people understand the merits of socialist theory as far as general welfare is concerned, but they oppose it under the pretext that it cannot be implemented. Let the Almighty step in and arrange things in a proper way. No more logic chopping. I tell you that the British rule is not there because God willed it, but for the reason that we lack the will and courage to oppose it. Not that they are keeping us under subjugation with the consent of God, but it is with the force of guns and rifles, bombs and bullets, police and militia, and above all because of our apathy that they are successfully committing the most deplorable sin, that is, the exploitation of one nation by another. Where is God? What is he doing? Is he getting a diseased pleasure out of it? A Nero, a Genghis Khan. Down with him. Now another piece of manufactured logic. You ask me how I will explain the origin of this world and origin of man. Charles Darwin has tried to throw some light on this subject. Study his book. Also, have a look at Sohan Swami's Common Sense. You will get a satisfactory answer. This topic is concerned with biology and natural history. This is a phenomenon of nature. The accidental mixture of different substances in the form of nebulae gave birth to this Earth. Study history to know this. The same process caused the evolution of animals, and in the long run that of man. Read Darwin's Origin of Species. All the later progress is due to man's constant conflict with nature and his efforts to utilize nature for his own benefit. This is the briefest sketch of this phenomenon. Your next question will be why a child is born blind or lame even if he was not a sinner in his previous birth. This problem has been explained in a satisfactory manner by biologists as a mere biological phenomenon. According to them, the whole burden rests upon the shoulders of parents whose conscious or unconscious deed caused the mutilation of the child prior to his birth. You may thrust yet another question at me, though it is merely childish. The question is, if God does not really exist, why do people come to believe in him? Brief and concise, my answer will be, as they come to believe in ghosts and evil spirits, so they also evolve a kind of belief in God. The only difference being that God is almost a universal phenomenon and well-developed theological philosophy. However, I do disagree with radical philosophy. It attributes his origin to the ingenuity of exploiters who wanted to keep the people under their subjugation by preaching the existence of a supreme being. Thus claimed an authority and sanction from him for their privileged position. I do not differ on the essential point that all religions, faiths, theological philosophies, and religious creeds and all other such institutions in the long run become supporters of the tyrannical and exploiting institutions, men and classes. Rebellion against any king has always been a sin in every religion. As regard the origin of God, my thought is that man created God in his imagination when he realized his weaknesses, limitations and shortcomings. In this way he got the courage to face all the trying circumstances and to meet all dangers that might occur in his life, and also to restrain his outbursts in prosperity and affluence. God, with his whimsical laws and parental generosity, was painted with variegated colors of imagination. He was used as a deterrent factor when his fury and his laws were repeatedly propagated so that man might not become a danger to society. He was the cry of the distressed soul, for he was believed to stand as father and mother, sister and brother, brother and friend when in time of distress a man was left alone and helpless. He was almighty and could do anything. The idea of God is helpful to a man in distress. Society must fight against this belief in God as it fought against idol worship and other narrow conceptions of religion. In this way man will try to stand on his feet. Being realistic, He will have to throw his faith aside and face all adversaries with courage and valor. That is exactly my state of mind. My friends, it is not my vanity. It is my mode of thinking that has made me an atheist. I don't think that by strengthening my belief in God and by offering prayers to Him every day, I can bring improvement in my situation, nor can I further deteriorate it. I have read of many atheists facing all troubles boldly, so I am trying to stand like a man with the head high and erect to the last, even on the gallows. Let us see how steadfast I am. One of my friends asked me to pray. When informed of my atheism, he said, "When your last days come, you will begin to believe." I said, "No, dear sir, never shall it happen. I consider it to be an act of degradation and demoralization. For such petty selfish motives, I shall never pray." Reader and friends, is it vanity? If it is, I stand for it.